Aurora Cannabis posted record revenue in its global medical cannabis segment, up 12% since the same time last year. And this comes as the company wants to see whether the U.S. will ease regulations on medical cannabis after U.S. President Donald Trump signed an order for it to be reclassified. So joining us now is Aurora's CEO, Miguel Martin. It's good to have you, sir. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
So, okay, first off, you saw most growth, correct me if I'm wrong, in the medical cannabis market. So just to start, where in the latest quarter did you see that growth, geography speaking, and what drove it?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it was a great quarter, record earnings. We had really strong EBITDA. And in terms of international growth, Aurora operates in 12 countries. We have leadership positions in Canada, Germany, Poland, UK, and Australia. And those are the primary countries that we focus on today. But there are emerging countries like Switzerland and Austria, Spain and Italy. And so the movement around legalization of medical cannabis is definitely a strong one internationally.
Consumer cannabis, though, not exactly the same story. Like, what are you seeing when it comes to consumer cannabis, particularly in Canada?
So in Canada, consumer cannabis, is a real challenge. Both the margins and the overall sort of profile of it really does not work well for a company like Aurora. Today we announced further focus on international cannabis, much stronger margins, much stronger growth, and a real feature around science and genetics that you see in those regulated markets as opposed to the consumer market.
Yeah, because you say in Q4 of 2026, the company will be exiting certain markets when it comes to consumer cannabis in Canada. Do you ever plan to exit completely from Canada when it comes to the consumer cannabis side?
Well, this has been a project over time. Over the past 2 years, we've definitely featured more and more of that high margin, high growth business. Today, what we announced is that we're really going to further that and only focus on a couple of markets. If it so turns out that those few remaining markets don't make sense, we'll make that adjustment. But by the same token, if things were to change, it also gives us the option to go back into it.
All right, let's get back to the reportings that came out today. You've also established an at-the-market share offering program. Can you tell us more about this program?
Yeah, it's a great piece of news for the company. The company is one of the strongest balance sheets in the cannabis industry with no debt on the cannabis business and over 150 million in cash. But today we announced an ATM or at the market offering that will give us the opportunities to be even more opportunistic as we focus on internal investments, which we've made to great success, and also potential M&A that would be accretive. We're looking at that to really bolster our ability to take advantage of this growing market.
Interesting. So let's get to the other part of this, which is the potential reclassification of cannabis in the U.S. If this goes through, let's just talk about, first of all, how this would actually affect your business.
Well, we've been saying that all along, that for the U.S. to move towards legalization, it would be medical first. And as a global leader in medical cannabis and a company that's been in for over a decade, we've navigated strict regulatory regimes, both Canada and Europe and other countries. The U.S. announcement's exactly what we thought it would be, which is a focus on the medical aspects of it first, not on the rec side. And what the administration has announced is a move from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. Now, it's early days, and as a company that trades on the NASDAQ, until it is federally legal, we can't get there. But this is a positive development for a company like Aurora that has leadership around the world in medical cannabis. And as that opens up, we'll be in a strong position to take advantage of it.
Would it be, I'm not sure how it would work. Would it be consumers paying out of pocket if they have a prescription, or would it be insurance companies? Do you know yet how that would actually work?
We haven't seen the details, but when you look around the world, it is both a self-payer and a reimbursed market. In Canada and other parts of the world, it is part of the insurance program and is reimbursed in many ways, including with the veteran program, here in Canada. And so we'd have to. We've also been encouraged by the administration's focus on research that would open that up for a broader reimbursed model like we see around the world. And again, companies like Canada, Aurora in Canada have navigated that, so we'd have experience in working with it.
Okay, we've got a bit of a shaky signal there. You're freezing a little bit, so I missed part of that answer. So just in case you didn't answer that part, when it comes to who the main customer would be for medical cannabis in the U.S., do you have any idea based on data who that would be?
Yeah, it would be, similar to what we see in Canada. So both on a self-payer and a reimbursed model, we see a variety of patients accessing medical cannabis as part of their insurance and working with their practitioners. And as the research continues, we see the breadth of those applications continuing.
And in terms of a timeline for regulatory changes, obviously these things don't happen overnight, but I'm not sure how long you think it would take to see this in the U.S. Would it maybe be by the end of this year?
It's hard to say, but I think, the U.S. is just one component. We're seeing comprehensive changes to medical cannabis in large, countries around the world, and we've been able to take advantage of that. So we've been adaptable and very opportunistic as it pertains to that. And as the U.S. evolves, we'll definitely, be able to play. Timing is hard to say at this juncture.
And just lastly, how much of your focus would be on the U.S. if this was to open up there, more of a market in the U.S.? Because correct me if I'm wrong, your largest international medical cannabis market right now is Australia.
Yeah, that's correct. The great news is all of the work that we do in the regulated production, development, and delivery of these medical products around the world is the same thing that we would do in the U.S. And so as we grow those markets, like you mentioned, Australia, our largest, all of that work is directly applicable to the U.S. So it doesn't require a new investment or changes. We can just take that decade-plus learnings and apply it to the big market, which is the U.S.
Okay, interesting stuff. We'll leave it there. Appreciate you joining us, though. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. That was Miguel Martin, CEO of Aurora Cannabis.